One, another day at the pond. Cat a whopper plopper across there the other night and got it snagged and couldn't find it. So now I'm just putting eyes on the pond and going back to the tackle box, see if I can't catch a few fish. Just did a short video about carrying capacity for shorts. I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit. So this is a 2.5 acre pond in Georgia. And 2.5 acre ponds, well, ponds in Georgia will hold 100 pounds of fish per acre. So a 2.5 acre pond would hold 250 pounds of fish if we didn't do anything to it, didn't manage it at all, just stocked the fish and left it alone. You'd have 250 pounds of fish. We have a feeding program going out here. Fish are fed several times a day. That boosts the carrying capacity of this pond significantly. Now we're talking about the pond holding 400 pounds of fish per acre. So this 2.5 acre pond now can hold 1,000 pounds of fish, provided we feed it every day. You can't stop feeding. You have to feed daily. If you mess it up, it'll drop back to the 100 pounds and you'll have a bunch of fish that are starved to death. So consistent feeding is critical. But that being said, we've been feeding fine. Now our pond holds 1,000 pounds of fish. So we stocked 100 bass in here, split about even between Floridas and Northerns to track that growth. Right now, those 100 bass are averaging probably about 2.5 pounds each. So we know, since we stocked 100 and they're 2.5 pounds, we've got about 250 pounds of bass. And since there's no other fish in here but bluegill, we know the remainder of those fish, that 750 pounds, is in bluegill. And that's a pretty good balance. As the bass population grows up and the fish get bigger, it's going to eat into that bluegill population more. It's like a seesaw. You know, as the bass population gets higher, the bluegill population will go down. That's the part these guys don't get. It's pretty simple math. If you stock twice as many bass and you had 400 pounds of bass, you only have 600 pounds of bluegill. And it gets into about that area right there where there's not enough forage in the pond to support that many bass. That's what catch and release does to you. You have to harvest some fish. You have to at least understand that the bass can crowd, and it may be necessary to take some of those fish out. So for 30 years on most of our ponds and lakes, people don't understand this concept and have just thrown the bass back. And now you've got a situation in most of these lakes and ponds that the bass population is so high, there's not enough forage fish in there to feed them sufficiently. And that brings us to the second point people usually don't understand: stunted bass populations. When they're living in that condition, they don't grow anymore. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen guys like go catch a 7 or 8 pound bass. They want to take it and bring it into their pond, but their pond is a stunted bass population. There's really not sufficient forage in there for even 1 pound fish, much less a 7 pound fish. Now, we can start getting technical, and when you put a 7 or 8 pound fish into a 1 pound pond full of 1 pounders, that 7 pound fish can eat those 1 pounders. And they do. And that's where it really confuses guys, because those stunted bass populations every once in a while will kick out a pretty decent looking fish because of that. But that is definitely not the most efficient way to grow large bass. I'm gonna swing this camera around and keep walking. It's starting to rain a little bit harder. Here, I'll do a quick pan here. You can see the pond's looking great. Hey, thanks for joining, guys. There's 2 of you there. If you have any questions, just throw them in the comment section there. I'll get to them. The pond water's clearing up. We're starting to get, it's starting to get below 60 degrees. It's been unseasonably warm here, but that's okay, because that gives us a few extra weeks of growing season for our fish. When the water stays above 60, the fish keep growing, keep feeding, and that's good. Our biggest bass we caught so far is 4.1 pounds. And we've had one fish, it was a Florida fish, that was under standard weight. It came in at 99%, but that's okay. 99% relative weight, it still falls in the acceptable range. I don't get real concerned until they start dropping below 95%. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I got some videos back there. I'm gonna walk higher on the hill here. It's a little muddy down there when it rains. Thanks for joining, everyone. Appreciate you guys, really do. I'm gonna be putting this stuff out on YouTube mostly. I think YouTube I'm getting a lot of more traction on there, especially compared to the number of viewers that I have over there. I think a little consistent posting over there is gonna be better financially for us. Nothing wrong with making money, right? Anyway, our bass are growing well. Hey, what's up, little Rich? Yeah, man, I'm glad you came on. Appreciate that, man. Run the viewer hours up some. You can see right here, we got a little bit of benthic algae. See that green down there? And next spring, I'll have the Amazon store set up so you'll be able to buy the products. I'll do demonstrations on how to treat these things. You guys can do this stuff on your own. That's why I set this whole thing up like this. Switch this back around. I spent 20 years driving the roads, 1.2 million miles, chasing after clients that were, we'll call 1%ers, you know, guys who had enough money to build a private lake and manage a private lake and hire a guy like me. Over that 20-year period, set this stuff back down again. Over that 20-year period, I spent most of my time talking on the phone to guys like us who don't have lake management money, don't have build a private lake money, helping people, you know, get this information out to them as well. Because it always worked out that if I helped a guy and he got what he needed, he inevitably bumped into somebody else who had the money to hire me, and I'd get a job from helping that dude out. So when I started my Instagram and social media stuff, the entire idea was to put the information out there so guys who couldn't afford it could have it and use it and help their pond too. I just don't see the point in catering to the 1% on social media. That doesn't make any sense. It's much more beneficial to cater to the 99% of people than it is the 1% of people. So, you know, anybody who thinks they're in some kind of contest with me, you can have all that work. I don't want any of that work. I'm not here to chase after jobs for rich dudes and play that game anymore. That's all for you guys. Take it. I'm here to help the dudes like me who work for a living and can't afford it. And that's the idea behind the page, and I appreciate you guys following. I'm gonna keep walking around. Let's go over here to the fish feeder real quick. I'm gonna leave this stuff right here. Anyway, for anybody new following, this is Sugar Hill Outdoors Pond, and the bass were stocked May, late May, mid to late May, I guess, of 2022. They were 5 inches and born the October before that in 2021. So this October, these fish actually turned 2 years old. Ooh, there's a nice bass right there. Can you guys see him? I'll try to throw right here and we can watch them. Usually these bass will start feeding on. There's one. Boom. Get some, boy. Got a little bit of glare in the water. It's hard to see. I'll try to throw it a little closer right here. There was a nice bass right there. Did you guys see him? Flipping kicks. You're more than welcome, my friend. Thanks for following, man. Ooh, ooh. Man, they're fired up today. Ooh. I'm gonna have to go get to the tackle box. Look at there. Did y'all see that? Man, they're putting on a show today, boy. Come on back through, boys. There went one. Did you see him? Woo, nice one. So that's a 2-year-old bass, boys. And if you pay attention and do what I say, your bass will be this big in 2 years too. We'll have fish over 6 pounds this time next year. I've done this many, many times to the guys who will listen. There's guys who don't listen. There's guys, I have to tell you exactly what happens, boys. They come on here and they selectively listen, and they take kind of what they can take away from it, and they also take what kind of matches what they think they already know, and they take that back to their pond, and they don't do this exactly right. And it's a precise thing. It's easy. It's really not hard. That bass is just smacking some. It's a step-by-step process. That was a nice bass, boys. That fish was getting closer to 4-pounder. We've had the biggest fish we've caught out here is 4.1 so far. So for a 2-year-old bass, he's cooking along pretty well. Also keep in mind that these are not F1 hybrid bass. These are a split between northern bass and Florida bass. And they grow slower than F1s. I can get F1s bigger than this in this amount of time. But by feeding these bluegill up, these bluegill are a lot heavier than they would be normally. And that's what gets the bass growing so well, because the bluegill are heavier. I guess those bass got their bellies full and gave up on us. Oop, there went one blowing in here. Oop, there went another one. I lied. That was a smaller one. Y'all see that small one? I can't even tell if y'all can see that or not. I try to watch the camera more than the fish, but I'm doing a bad job. Anyway, like I said, it's a step-by-step process. It's really not very hard, but you have to do it exactly right. And man, I tell you what, boys, guys fail at that. They absolutely fail at listening. They will not listen. They will selectively hear what they want to hear and just do this all wrong. Oh, Bass Daddy says he got a buddy with a pond that was inherited. Yeah, man, that's my guy right there. Those are my people. If he needs any help, just tell him to drop me a DM or drop questions in the thing. It's cool. I'll help him out. It's good content. I've been doing this a long time, and they said on YouTube and on Instagram, if you can keep people engaged, that you'll be able to make some money and get a lot of followers, and they're right. I'm just getting into kind of making a little bit of money, but got plenty of followers, and helping guys like that out is how I got there. So I'm not about to quit doing that. Oh, green sunfish. I tell you what, that's a good question, brother. Green sunfish and crappie are a major problem. And the best thing he can do is drain that lake and start it all over again. Just drain it dry, kill all the fish in it, start it from scratch, and he'll be able to start it just like I described this one. Need to stock it right. I didn't cover it real clear on this. If he goes back through the videos, I've gone over a few times, and if he has any specific questions for his area, things can be a little bit different depending on where you are. But instead of trying to manage around those fish like everybody does, now I just told you, drain that pond, kill everything in it, and start all over again. People never take that advice, and people never grow bass like this either. You'll get into a losing battle financially. You'll get into a losing battle environmentally. There's not much you can do with green sunfish. They're a problem in many different ways. And it's just easier and cheaper just to wipe it and start it all over. And he'll get growth just like this, man. He'll have 4-pound bass in a couple years, and he'll be off and running. Like I've got F1s. If he uses F1s, you can get them to 7.5 or 8 pounds at their end of their third growing season, which is one more year from this date. Next fall, these fish aren't F1s, but they'll probably be 6.5 or 7. F1s will be 8. And that's when you have a lot of fun, man. When you got a whole pond full of 8-pound bass that is a private pond, man, it's incredible. All right, Chris has got a 15-acre pond, South Carolina HOA. Yeah, dude, anytime. Throw questions up. Yeah, that's what they don't want to hear, isn't it, Bass Daddy? They don't want to hear that. But I can promise you, I've watched guys over the last 25 or 30 years not take that advice and spend 10 times the money stocking shad, stocking bluegill, and not getting a fraction of these results. Sometimes they just spend all that money and absolutely nothing happens. They completely wasted their time and money. So I'd rather see him do it right. Just do it right once, and then like for the next 10, 15 years, he's gonna have a great pond. Midwest, what's up, man? What's good? My battery's dying, boys. I didn't charge this phone properly. Let's take a quick walk. It's really hard to see in the water on these cloudy days, unfortunate. Water's clearing up because phytoplankton blooms dropping out. It's cooling off. We've had it was 58 degrees out here the other day, water temperature wise. And that's about the spot they stop growing, so we'll stop feeding them. Getting a question, let me get up on this rock. Yeah, Rebecca, we do, there's a lot of, fish structure out here that's not aquatic weed related. We've got stumps, actually I'll flip it around right here. We've got gravel beds. I don't know if you guys can see that. There's a nice gravel bed that wraps this whole point. We use geofabric to keep the gravel fluffed up. Good habitat for a crawfish. Like I said, we've got stumps in the creek channel out there. We've got several blowdowns. This one's exposed. I'll get my hand out of the way so it'll focus. We did a lot of work rock and wood wise, because rocks and wood, as you know, Rebecca, don't grow over the whole pond and create carrying capacity issues and mess up our fish population balance. There's a whole misconception to having aquatic weeds in the pond that they're necessary, and they're not. Matter of fact, they usually cause more trouble than they create, but good. If you guys don't know where I'm at, that's I-85. That's why there's so much road noise. And this is Sugar Hill Outdoors. These boys are landscape architects. And this pond is for irrigation. Here, I'll walk over there and show it to you. Sure, Bass Daddies, no problem, man. Hit me up if you need any more help. I do stock some thread fins, but they're not completely necessary for trophy bass. They are good additions, but I found, Chris, that thread fins can either be a wonderful addition or kind of a waste of money. They're kind of a boom bust, where your bluegill are way more consistent. You just put bluegill on feed. But Clint's got fields uphill here. This is an irrigation pond. That's how he got permission to build this from the state of Georgia, to pull irrigation water out of it for his commercial operation here. And we've got grass carp stacked in here pretty heavy. There went one of them right there. I've got them in here so thick they're actually eating this water primrose back, pulling. They're hungry. But I don't want to put chemicals in the water, because then he can't irrigate from the pond. You can see some of our rock structure right there we added, and some shallow water. We've got it at all levels, all depths. We were real smart about how we added it. Fish are doing great. Said we've got fish from 2 pounds to 4 pounds right now at the end of our second growing season. I'm real happy about that. Doing well. And I'm really happy too about being able to track the difference between northern bass and Florida bass in the same pond. I've never been able to do that before. Northern bass are crushing the Floridas, by the way, because we're not in Florida. Where you stock Florida bass matters, boys. And you really don't want them. I try to discourage people not to stock a pond full of pure Floridas, and they rarely listen to that advice. And we're kind of proving why with this pond. Some of these northern bass have been caught 10 times. Some of these Florida bass haven't been caught at all. Floridas are harder to catch. They're finicky little things. And your catch rates go way down when you stock a pond full of pure Floridas. I'll be interested to see how these, because the idea behind this was we're going to, hopefully the northerns and Floridas will cross over, and we'll have F1 bass born in here for several years. Normally F1s are kind of a one and done situation, meaning you stock them the first round of fish you stock are F1s, but then their babies revert back to regular fish growth like these fish. So the idea here was put the Northerns and Floridas in and get F1s born in over time. So every year at least we have a chance to have some F1s born into the population and have better growth out of them, because they do grow significantly better than these fish. But I will say this, 4 pounds in 2 years for a northern fish, that's about as good as I've ever done. They're good genetics, good Titan bass is where I got these fish. And they're aggressive and they're growing well. So it's been a cool project. I appreciate you guys watching. Hey dog, sorry you just got here, man. I'm about to click it off because I'm running out of phone battery. I'll flip it back around so you don't have to look at me. I've got about 5 ponds coming online next year that we're going to be tracking like this. And actually, a few of them, I'm going to do them. I can't get the people to listen like we talked about earlier and drain the dang thing. So I'm going to stock those fish and do the best job that I can do the way everybody else does it. How about that? I won't say the wrong way, but the way I don't prefer. And then we can run them side by side, and we can have that evidence for folks as they come along on social media to say, hey, look, we did it your way and we did it my way, and these are the results. I recommend my way highly. Chris has got another question coming through. Do I recommend tilapia? And no, I don't. There's no magic fish that you could stock that makes this better. Here in Georgia, tilapia are illegal, so I've never stocked them. But I have stocked them in North Carolina when I was working up there. And normally back then they were $5 a tilapia. And usually what happened is the bass ate every one of them in the first 15 minutes of stocking them. If that didn't happen, and they did get in there and reproduce, come about this time of year in the fall, you just had a whole pond full of dead tilapia. And you had to go back out there and pick up fish that were all dead, and you had to tell the people, even though you told them when you stocked the fish that they were all going to die, and when it got cold, they still assumed that there was some kind of chemical contamination, or the sky's always falling with that. And it goes back to that carrying capacity. Right now, I know I've got 750 pounds of bluegill in here. I went over that at the beginning of this if you missed it. If I stock tilapia in here, that cuts into that 750 pounds. You haven't added any more fish. So I've got 750 pounds of bluegill. If I stock threadfin shad in here, I'm gonna have 600 pounds of bluegill and 150 pounds of shad, or 500 pounds of bluegill or 250 pounds of shad, however that balances out. I have not increased the amount of forage to the fishery. I've diversified the amount of forage in the fishery. Now, there is some benefit to that, and I'll go into that, but that'll be a different video because I'm running out of time. But that's where guys make the mistake, thinking that when they add forage that they've increased it. They haven't. You've diversified it. It's like a pie. If 3/4 of that pie is bluegill and you add shad, cut that pie in half. Now you got half shad, half bluegill. You haven't increased anything. This is how you increase it. You add energy, right? This increases the fish population, feeding these bluegill. If I stop feeding these bluegill, there went another nice bass, this bluegill population will drop back down to 100 pounds of fish per acre instead of the 250, 300 pounds of fish per acre that I got going right now. That was a nice bass. That was a nice bass. That was a nice bass. I hope that makes sense. I'm going quick because I'm running out of battery. I'm down to about 8%, boys. Killed it. I've run my mouth until the iPhone is dead. Woo! Get some. So, is stocking tilapia a terrible thing? Absolutely not. If you're in the right area and they don't die like that, and you can manage them properly. I've seen great ponds with tilapia. I've seen great ponds with threadfin shad. They've been sparse. they haven't been consistent with these bluegill. So when I go online and I tell people this is how I do it and this is how I recommend it, this way is proven. This way works all the time. Those other things, depends on the area, depends on, you know, the temperatures, it depends on if it's legal or not, depends on a lot of things. So that's why I'm kind of coming at it this way, if that makes sense, because we could kind of bust that down in your area. If tilapia are legal and they don't die in the fall, yeah, they might be a good option. But I promise you, you can just straight up put bluegill in there and feed them, and you're going to get the same results as I'm getting right here without spending any extra money. And you're not going to hear that from too many fish guys, because they make money selling those fish. I do not. Just saying. I make money helping dudes grow fish. Anytime, Chris. Thanks for following, man. If you need it written out, let me know. I'll shoot you a report or whatever you might need. Sometimes HOAs and stuff like that need that kind of stuff. I've done a lot of work for HOAs. It's pretty good money. Anyways, that's the pond, boys. And it's looking awesome. I'm really proud of it. 4 pounds in 2 years. That's doing it right there. But there's plenty of biologists out here. I'm not the only dude who can do this, you know, and if you got a local guy who's good at his job, yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Appreciate that. But, you know, this is basic pond management. This is not anything that any fishery scientist doesn't know. They might not quite have as much field of experience as me, but they'll understand all these concepts and they'll be able to help you out too. If you, like I said, there's guys all over. I see them online doing a great job. You know, I'm not here to be in a contest with them. I'll refer people to them if they want. I'm not really doing this. I'm doing this for social media, not as I'm like a social media consultant more than I am a pond manager anymore, because I just got aggravated with all the misinformation going around and seeing all the fish, you know, not growing right. So that's what's going on with me. And if you guys need my help, you know, anytime, drop a DM. I'm gonna cut this thing off now. It's just about to die.